If this video gets 250 likes by tomorrow, I will upload another video tomorrow because I am a responsible and consistent content creator. What's up, my Nimrods? It's Gage, and today I'm making a very bold statement, and that's that there is in fact not 59 genders.
I've started the hashtag 76 genders.
Actually, no, we're not talking about that. We're actually talking about how hand traps, they just really should have never existed in Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, to preface this argument, I'd like to take a moment and say that at the moment, it's completely necessary to have hand traps in the game at the moment. But I do not believe that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a game that's really built for hand traps. I believe it's a mechanic that is severely broken, just way overpowered compared to all other tools that we have right now. And I'll take a moment to explain that to you guys. So for people that don't know what I'm referring to, when I refer to a hand trap, I'm referring to cards that can be activated from your hand during your opponent's turn. That implies that they are spell speed 2. Cards such as Ash Blossom, Ghost Ogre, Maxi, and also Evenly Matched is kind of lumped into this category of hand traps. These are cards normally that have the aspects of a regular trap card put into them, but you can circumvent the fact that you have to set the card first, which is a huge benefit to playing these cards, and for most of the time will make these cards really, really good. And I believe that is a huge problem, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh! I believe Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a card game that really wasn't meant to abuse the fact that you could have hand traps. And I'm going to compare it to some other card games for you guys to kind of see why it just doesn't work as well in a game like Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, if we look at the top 3 trading card games at the moment, we have Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and we also have Yu-Gi-Oh! Those are the top 3. They probably always will be the top 3 for the foreseeable future. And the thing about these card games is they all have something different about them. Magic the Gathering is a resource-based game that uses mana to cast cards, so you have constant turn progression. Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of just spews its entire board out on the field and says, hey, what can you fucking do? Pokemon is its own beast in itself. It's all different. It's also kind of turn-based in the fact where evolving is a mechanic, and as well as energy, putting energy onto Pokemon can take multiple turns, unless I'm pretty sure there's some cards that can stack multiple energy on a Pokemon in one turn. I'm not too familiar with Pokemon, but I do recognize the fact that it is completely different than both that of Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! But for the most part in this video, I'm going to be referring to Magic the Gathering when I talk about hand traps and how it works in Magic the Gathering, but it most certainly does not work in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you might think that that's an awful argument. They're two completely separate card games, but if we look at it, it really shows how one mechanic can work in another game and it just can't work in the other. So in Magic the Gathering, like I said, it is a turn-based progression game for the fact that you have to play a mana from your hand, or you don't have to, but you can play a mana from your hand once per turn. Therefore, you kind of curve yourself out with 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, but that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that mana is a resource in the game, and how there's plenty of different ways you can utilize mana in the gaming strategy rather than just summoning minions. And one of those main ways to utilize mana outside of summoning minions or casting spells is to cast instants from your hand. And instants in Magic the Gathering are pretty much hand traps in that of Yu-Gi-Oh! However, the important thing to note in Magic the Gathering is that an instant spell normally will cost mana. Therefore, you have to have a certain amount of mana allotted, or a certain amount of mana kept, to be able to activate an instant on your opponent's turn. Therefore, you can trick your opponent into playing mind games. If I have 3 mana open or 2 mana open, I can bluff the fact that I may have a mana leak. I think that's the card name. I was sorting through it the other day at the card shop. I'll throw it up here if that's not it. This is obviously an extremely powerful card and could definitely fuck up my opponent's strategies, but it's very important to note that if I do not have 2 mana available to me to be able to cast this instant in the first place, my opponent can just do whatever he pleases. And that's where we correlate this card into Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Does not have a resource system to it. Therefore, you can play your entire hand on the field turn 1, and that's very much what the game is right now. And the fact that there is no resource system in Yu-Gi-Oh! Really tarnishes the competitiveness of these hand traps into the game, because there is literally no way to play around a hand trap that your opponent has. You kind of just have to play Russian roulette and hope they don't have it. We see multiple games in Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh just being instantly lost for the opponent having max C. There's really nothing you can do. You're going to commit a board anyways, because if you choose to play around max C, you're making a suboptimal play, and you're pretty much just trying to play roulette and hope your opponent doesn't have it. If there was a resource system in Yu-Gi-Oh, perchance like max C costed 1 mana. If my opponent had no mana available to them on my turn, I could play freely without worrying about a max C in my opponent's hand. There's just literally no way in Yu-Gi-Oh to circumvent that. You're forced to play into max C, forced to play into hand traps, and just hope your opponent doesn't have them. And I think that is a very broken thing. That's just one point in saying that mind games is really difficult to implement into Yu-Gi-Oh! You're just kind of forced to blame it on dumb luck that your opponent would have the out, have the Ash Blossom, or have the Ghost Ogre. You really just genuinely don't have a way to play around them. You either get dicked by it, or you don't. That's not even bringing up the fact that hand traps literally have no counter in Yu-Gi-Oh! Aside the fact from if you're main decking Mind Drain, which is a suboptimal choice, which you're not going to be doing suboptimal choices to counter cards that can only win games by chance. The chance being that your opponent would have them. If you truly don't understand the logic of why people aren't maining Mind Drain when hand traps are literally made in every deck, I can't help you there. You'll figure it out soon enough. Take a card like Mystical Space Typhoon, or Night Beam, perchance, where you can pop a face-down spell or trap card on your opponent's side of the field. If hand traps worked the same way as regular traps, and your opponent had, perchance, just one trap in their back row, you could zap it with a Space Typhoon, or better yet, zap it with the Night Beam, and it would go to the graveyard, then you can freely make your plays. So perchance you could actually play around the trap card. This also applies to playing around trap cards when maybe there's only a certain amount of trap cards actually main decked in the format. For example, 3 Solemn Strike, 1 Solemn Warning would be a very appropriate trap lineup for the game maybe right now. So if your opponent sets a back row card, it is 4 out of 40 chance, 1 out of 10, that it's going to be one of those 2 trap cards, and therefore you can play around it accordingly. You can zap it and hope it's not a bluff, or you can actually attempt to play around the card by baiting it out. You know it's there, therefore you can play around it. Hand traps just literally don't have that luxury. In all stages of the game, your opponent is going to have a hand. You don't know what's in their hand. It could be anything. We're not in a format right now where the hand is just play Thunder King set 5, so you're top decking the entire rest of the game. You just don't know what's in your hand at all times. It could be a card that they just couldn't play that turn, I want to fucking kill myself. It could be a card that they just couldn't play that turn, or it could actually be a hand trap that they're keeping in their hand, but you just have no way to tell because there's so many resources flying around the game at all times that there's really no way to pinpoint it or just say, hey, he's holding on to a Ghost Ash. Or Ash Blossom. I always go by the OCG name with that card. It's a very frustrating thing in general, and you can easily point games to losing just by saying, hey, he had the Ash Blossom. Hey, he had the Ghost Ash. There's really no way to say, oh, he played around this card successfully. He definitely outplayed me. Most of the time, games are just lost because your opponent had that dumb luck of drawing the card they needed. And on the off chance that they did brick, your dumb combo will normally go through and you'll win the game. But there's really no way of telling that they bricked. You kind of just have to hope they do. I know there's a whole lot of words I just threw at you guys, but to kind of shorten it as best as I can, hand traps are just never meant for Yu-Gi-Oh! They're a necessity right now. They have to always be a necessity because the game is just so fast-paced that counters really don't even exist. Gamma Seal is a hard counter for boards, but hand traps is the only way to counter your opponent going into turn 1. And turn 1, as we all know, is so vital. Winning a die roll is huge, and not having a way to counter your opponent if they win the die roll would be absolutely bonkers. I think everybody can agree to that. But if it were up to me, I would have never created hand traps of any kind. They really tarnished the competitive aspect of this game for the fact that there really is no way to play around them. It's not like Magic where you can bluff cards or you can even play around cards or bait out cards depending on how many resources they have available to them. Pokemon doesn't apply to this scenario, so that's that. I know I'm going to get a lot of complaints down below that Magic's not really comparable. It's a completely different game. But I really tried my best to kind of explain how resources matter when implementing a mechanic like hand traps or instant spells for the case in Magic. I think Doug talked about this before. Maybe I'm just echoing his thoughts or maybe I'm adding on to it. I'm not quite sure. Truthfully, I didn't watch your video, Doug. eat shit, bud. But hey, I just wanted to throw my hat in the ring there, kind of give my thoughts about it. Let me know what you guys think about hand traps, though. Do you think they are a necessary evil? I'm not disputing that again. I have to recap that again. But let me know what you guys think. If maybe if they were never created, would the game be a better place?
That's all, folks.
If you guys liked the video, be sure to like the video, thumbs up the video, however express that you want to enjoy the video. Please do like the video, because I'll upload tomorrow again. I don't know. I probably will regardless, but gotta get those likes. That being said, if you guys like my content, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell button so you can get notified when I release that subpar Yu-Gi-Oh content on a daily basis. Hell yeah, brother. That being said, I will probably catch you guys tomorrow. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Nem signing out.